Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together was released on the Super Famicom on October 6, 1995 to much fanfare and critical acclaim. This strategy game from Quest set the standard for console tactical role-playing games for a generation, maybe even two, and saw many ports on a variety of platforms over the years. On November 11, 2022, Square Enix published the game once more for PC, PlayStation 4 and 5, as well as the Nintendo Switch, with Tactics Ogre Reborn. While the game did see a remaster previously on the PSP in 2010, this latest release has been completely retooled for the HD gaming generation. If you've seen my Ogre series collection video, you might know that I'm a die-hard fan of the Ogre series, and particularly Tactics Ogre, so naturally this was a release I was going to be excited about. As they do with all their major releases, Square Enix offered a special collector's package for the console editions up on their Japanese e-store for a whopping 22,000 yen. So I pre-ordered the Switch version and just got it in the mail. Let's take a look at the contents of this set, and once we're done with that, I'll give some brief off-the-cuff first impressions of the game in reference to previous iterations. The first thing you'll notice about the package isn't just the gorgeous updated artwork of the original, but that it's huge. And heavy too, which will all make sense as we start to take a look at the insides of this collector's edition. Removing the outer cover reveals a black box with the insignia used on the banner of Denham's Order, the Tactics Ogre Hero's faction in the game. The contents of the set are arranged in several layers, and at the very top is the game itself. Like so many modern releases, this Switch game doesn't have any inserts or an instruction manual, but there is a nice image of a map of Valeria on the reverse side of the cover art. I've come to appreciate little things like that. Next up is the music CD called Tactics Ogre Reborn Select Album, which contains 15 tracks for the newly remastered Tactics Ogre soundtrack. The 2010 PSP remaster also completely redid the music and was pretty much perfection in my opinion. But somehow Hitoshi Sakimoto and his Base Escape studio made it even more sweeping and epic than ever before. The CD is housed in an oversized cardboard case that opens up to a track listing and art depicting what I believe is the fabled ogre battle. The disc itself slides out of a pocket on the backside of this case, secured on a paper insert featuring realistic art of an idyllic castle. The official CD soundtrack for Tactics Ogre Reborn comes out at the end of November. It's a must-have for fans of the game and video game music, or just excellent music in general. Sitting next to the Select album is a set of tarot cards, which are an integral part of the gameplay in both the Tactics Ogre and Ogre Battle games, though more the latter than the former. All 22 of the cards are accounted for, printed with the exquisite art featured in the game. These cards are basically the same as the ones that came out during the PSP release as a pre-order or limited edition bonus. However, they're slightly thicker and sport a more ornate design on the reverse side. Physical tarot cards have been a bonus item dating back all the way to the Super Famicom release of the original Ogre Battle in 1993, so it's nice to see the tradition continue. Underneath these items are a tarot card mat and a tarot card pouch. The pouch is embroidered with an image of Denham's Order, and the mat features the Valerian map as seen earlier in the reverse side of the box art. Both items are very high quality, and if you're familiar with the large mousepad Square Enix has recently put out for Final Fantasy, Nier, and Dragon Quest, this mat is basically the same. The next item in this collector's edition is a hardbound book titled The Art of Tactics Ogre Reborn. Since this updated game recycles many of the PSP remaster's assets, much of the art within its pages can also be found in the fantastic Tactics Ogre Unmei no wa artworks published in 2011. But there are plenty of images that only appear in the 80 or so pages here, including new story-related art and character sprites. It's a real treat to look at for fans of Tactics Ogre, and I hope for an updated and expanded retail art book that includes more concept images. At the very bottom of the box is what makes this set so heavy, the Tactics Ogre official script book, which comes in 3 hefty volumes. It contains the entire game script for all story paths and scenarios, and because this limited edition is a Japanese release, naturally the text of these books are also all in Japanese, so they're not really useful for anyone who can't read the language. However, the glossy outer box and its stylish design do make for nice shelf candy. Providing a script for a game is uncommon, though not unheard of. For example, it's also a bonus for the upcoming Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion Limited Edition, and Final Fantasy VII and VIII also had their scripts published in books back in the day. Not technically included with this collector's package, but an interesting thing I wanted to mention anyway, is that anyone who pre-ordered Tactics Ogre Reborn from the Square Enix e-store was entered into a drawing to win a special piece of Ogre memorabilia that doesn't look like much at a glance, but has some meaning and history with the series. A glass pumpkin. Much like the game itself, this promotional item is a revival of something from the past, a unique gift that Quest offered dedicated Tactics Ogre fans in the Super Famicom era. In order to win one of these pumpkins, players had to reach the 100th floor of an optional dungeon, the Palace of the Dead, and acquire the Fire Quest equipment, snap a picture of the TV, and send it in to Quest. I've read that an estimated 1,000 people received this prize, so it's a pretty rare collector's item today. The Reborn edition will be given to 500 people sometime in or after December 2022, so hopefully I can add that to my collection as well. Wish me luck! And that's the Tactics Ogre Reborn Collector's Edition for Nintendo Switch. It's a great set, I really like it. If figurines, weapon miniatures, or something similar was included, that would make this limited edition offering even better, but for what it is, it's a great addition to any Ogre series fans' collection. Alright, from here on out I'll give some brief first impressions of the game. Fight it out. Oh wait, they don't say that anymore. Alright, so just some off-the-cuff remarks here. First thing, I really like the game, very satisfied. I've probably played it for about, 10 plus hours. In Chapter 2, took a lot of time getting there because I didn't realize there was a fast forward button, so I just kind of playing through the slow motions of all the turns. But anyways, what we're looking at here is a comparison of all the Tactics Ogre games that I was able to record. The Super Famicom one on the bottom, Saturn in the bottom middle, PlayStation bottom right, on the top right, the PSP version and the Switch version, of course. Switch version recorded in HDMI. The PSP was with D-terminal cables, basically component, with the little cables that came with the PSP, or you could buy them optional. Saturn, Super Famicom, and PlayStation were all on original hardware too, with RGB upscaled through the FrameMeister. So one thing you notice is that the Switch version looks great. I guess I'm going to assume the PS5, PS4, PC versions look even better. But 720p on the TV looks fantastic to me. Looks really good on the actual Switch itself in portable mode. The graphics, as you can see, are kind of smooth. So the character models are not quite as pixely. They just have that weird smooth look. I just assume they're assets taken from the PSP game and just made nice and smooth. It bothered me at first. I didn't really like it, but I got used to it and I kind of really like it now, though I still do prefer the pixely look. Now, I looked through all the options and I couldn't find any sort of, visual options to kind of change that look back, so you're kind of stuck with that. There are a lot of options for sounds. I guess you noticed this here. This is the Japanese version of the game, but it does have English in it. I'm going to assume there are other languages as well. But you do have the option within menu too, if you want to play the game in English, you set your Switch to English, and you can use Japanese voices throughout the options. So it's kind of a nice little option there. Like I said, their voices, they're in English, they have voice acting. It's actually pretty good. They're very British voices. Some of the characters, I don't know, I think Kachua doesn't really fit her, but that's just a nitpick. Will say that I do prefer the Sega Saturn voice acting, just, bias or whatever. But yeah, there are a lot of cool options. It does look and sound and feel like the PSP game. As mentioned earlier, the soundtrack has been remastered again, and it's more grand, more sweeping. You can tell there's just a lot of different little kind of additions to the soundtrack that makes it just sound completely new, even though it's something that myself and I'm sure a lot of you have heard a million times. A lot of the changes though from the PSP game that they did include, like the weird class leveling system, and some of the skills, kind of how you attain skills, are just completely gone. So they redid everything. It's a little bit more like the original games, but there's a lot of more options and a lot more things you can tweak. But it's very streamlined too, but you can spend quite a long time micromanaging all your dudes with all the equipment and spells and skills. So if you like that, like me, then you'll probably enjoy this. So if you have finishing moves like we were in PSP, they're also in this game, so it's kind of a nice little bonus. Yeah, so instead of doing the class levels, individual levels are here, so it feels like a Tactics Ogre game. Yeah, you can equip for all the little body parts. It's not limited like in the PSP version. If I recall, that's how it was. And like the PSP game, there's not like an automatic counter for every single attack like in the originals, so you won't be dying from counterattacks all the time, which is another thing. The game is a little bit easy. Just it is what it is. Your characters don't have permadeath upon first, just being draining all their HP to 0. You do have 3 turns to revive them, or beating the stage before they disappear forever. So it's very, very merciful with the player. So that might be a turn off for people who like the original. I played through the original, I beat it, and it was very tough, but I can appreciate that they made it a little bit more user friendly. There are all these different skills, passive skills, money, you get it from just selling things basically. A lot of these coins that you get in battle, and just you get a lot of items in battle, so from dead enemies. There is a leveling system, so like I said, the characters have individual levels, but there's like a unit kind of level, there's basically a cap as it increases as you go through the story. So you can train, which is nice because they took that away from the PSP version, I believe. You can train, you can fight all these. There's some optional dungeons, etc. But you can't ever go past your unit level, so you can't ever get too overpowered. When you can, progress to a higher level, you do gain levels pretty quickly. It gets, obviously as you progress through the game, you need more and more experience to level up, but it's a pretty good progression. It's pretty fair, I think, from what I've played. So I mentioned training earlier, but like different from the original iterations of Tactics Ogre, you can't have two-player training battle modes, and you can't the CPU just battle for you. You just kind of fight like a generic battle with generic enemies. But within battles, there are like little bonus objectives you can get now, which will give you extra experience or extra items. These are like using a certain class type in your party, or picking up some sort of support item, which that's another thing. Now battles are littered with these little cards, these little support buff items that kind of give you more critical hit percentage, or they will restore some of your MP. It's a cool idea, and you can collect 4 of them. You can also collect cards that make you lose them, but it kind of makes the battlefield look ugly and cluttered. So I don't know, I'm not a real big fan of that. But like I said, overall, a lot of cool changes. It makes it very easy to kind of pick up and play. Battles still take like half an hour or more to complete, and yeah, it's just really fun, and I'm so glad that Square Enix did this. I would like to see a new Ogre series game, Ogre Battle or style, or Tactics Ogre style. Hopefully this does sell well. Triangle Strategy sold pretty well here in Japan, so I'm hoping that Tactics Ogre does well as well. We'll see. I'm sure there's a million things I'm missing that I would want to bring up when I'm talking about this game and giving my impressions, but just know that it's very positive. Anyway, thank you for watching this and for listening to me ramble on about this video game. Go pick up Tactics Ogre Reborn, it's really good. And yeah, this is Jimmy Hapa from Import Gaming for the win. Take care.